delayed obedience is better than pretend obedience. Today, the Gospel speaks about the parable of two sons. This is the shortest of the parables in the Gospels. The point of the parable is clear that it is the doing of a deed that counts and not merely promising to do it. In other words, delayed obedience is better than pretend obedience. Saying yes and doing yes would be the best. The rebels who change their mindset and act as God requires truly fulfill God's intention. By contrast, those who piously profess to God's will but fail to carry it out end up in the wrong. Hence, we hear in the Gospel Jesus saying, the outcasts, such as tax collectors, prostitutes, will enjoy life in God's reign, while the esteemed leaders of the community are completely excluded. The meaning of this parable is crystal clear. The Jewish leaders are the people who said that they would obey God and then did not. On the other hand, the tax gatherers and the harlots are those who said that they would go their own way and then took God's way. The key to the correct understanding of this parable is that it is not really praising anyone. It is setting before us a clear picture of two very imperfect sets of people. Neither son in the story was the kind of son to bring full joy to his father. Both were unsatisfactory, but the one who in the end obeyed was incalculably better than the other. The ideal son would be the son who accepted the father's orders with obedience and with respect, and who unquestioningly and fully carried them out. But there are truths in this parable which go far beyond the situation in which it was first spoken. It tells us that there are two very common classes of people in this world. First of all, there are people whose profession is much better than their practice. They will promise anything. They make great declarations of piety and fidelity, but their practice lags far behind. Secondly, there are people whose practice is far better than their profession. They claim to be tough, hard-headed materialists, but somehow they are found out doing kindly and generous things, almost in secret, as if they were ashamed of it. They profess to have no interest in the church and in religion, and yet, when it comes to the reality, they live more Christian lives than many professing Christians. The real point of the parable is that while the second class is infinitely to be preferred to the first, neither is anything like a perfect. The really good man is the man in whom profession and practice meet and match. Further, this parable teaches us that promises can never take the place of performance, and fine words are never substitute for fine deeds. The son who said he would go and did not had all the outward marks of courtesy. In his answer, he called his father Sir with all respect. But a courtesy which never gets beyond words is totally an illusory thing. True courtesy is obedience, willingly and graciously given. Such kind of obedience we find in Jesus, who accepted and accomplished the will of the Father, He humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even death on a cross. We read this in Philippians chapter 2, verse 8. We also see such an obedience in the life of Mary, who said yes to God's will and cooperated in the salvific plan of God till the end. Her yes did not remain as a mere promise of the second son. We read in the Gospel of Luke that Mary set out and went with haste to meet her cousin Elizabeth in order to help her. And that journey continued throughout her life as the first and close disciple of Jesus. Today, we need to ask ourselves, how often do we break our promises? Do our works take root in our actions? Remember, the Christian way is in performance and not in promise. And that mark of a Christian is obedience, graciously and courteously given. The King desires obedient deeds more than words. Jesus will accept those who obey him and reject those who only claim to obey him. Therefore, in this Advent season, let us strive to be obedient to Jesus, that we may become worthy to welcome him into our hearts. Amen.